Hey guys, welcome back to Pokemon TCG Pocket. In today's video, we're going to be checking out the results from Ursi's tournament over the weekend. She runs these every weekend. They are the biggest tournaments we have, so I like looking at them, looking at some of the data, and looking at some of the decks we get. Massive shout out goes to Ursi, as always, for hosting these. I'll have a link to all of her stuff in the description, and she was also co-hosting with Raven in this one, so I will leave his links in the description as well. Massive shout out to both of these guys, but we had a resurgence of the Pikachu dominance this one. We had a Wiggly in the top 4, and we did see a bit of a comeback on the water decks with the Greninja Articuno being a fan favorite, but we're also seeing some Starmies creep back into it, so let's get into it. But before we get into it, guys, I have to give a massive shout out to today's sponsor, Warcraft Rumble. For those that don't know, Warcraft Rumble is coming to PC beta on December 10 through the Battle.net launcher. And the great thing about Warcraft Rumble is that there's always a new event that allows players to earn rewards, power up their armies, and unlock new content. You can complete interactive challenges to earn tickets to spend on various rewards. In addition to new minis regularly being added to the game, we are getting 3 new powerful leaders which were announced during Warcraft Direct. These are some that really bring me back to my teenage years, and that is Malfurion Stormrage, Anub Arak, and Orgrim Doomhammer. These leaders are split across 2 families and introduce loads of powerful new synergies to the game. Warcraft Rumble is a strategic game that has a bunch of different strategies and synergies that you can master to go ahead and climb through the campaign and win at PvP. Games only last for about 3 to 5 minutes, which is the perfect length if you're a person on the go just looking to enjoy some of your favorite characters in some fast-paced combat. And with so many different game modes inside the game between PvP, PvE, single player, co-op, there's going to be something for everyone to go ahead and enjoy in these fast-paced battles. And much like Hearthstone, Warcraft Rumble is based in the Warcraft universe, and if you are someone who has played World of Warcraft, you will thoroughly enjoy it. However, you do not need to have played World of Warcraft to really get the full experience of the game, and you will definitely find new characters and new combat to enjoy in this one. And you can download and play Warcraft Rumble today using my link in the description to play it on Android or iOS. And on December 10th, you can download it from the Battle.net launcher and play it on PC as well. And once again, a massive shout out goes to Warcraft Rumble for sponsoring this video. Okay, so first of all, I always like looking at the metagame, looking at the entrance of the decks with how much representation we have. As always, all the Pikachus I just add together. We did have a lot of the Charizard Arcanine and then a ton of the Mewtwo as well. And then I also like looking at the other main thing, which is going to be the standings, which is our top 32. As you can see, we did have a Pikachu Raichu with the Lieutenant Surge getting the win, followed by a Mewtwo. Pikachu, Zebra Striker, and Raichu seem to be the dominant ones in this one. And then we also had that Wigglytuff Arbok deck, which there was some great games between this and a Pikachu deck that they casted, which was fantastic. We'll show you guys a little bit of those highlights in a minute. But the thing I want to do is I just went over and whipped it up into a spreadsheet here. So the thing that I found super interesting, when last week we saw a mega dominance in Mewtwo's, now we're seeing the Pikachu dominance come back up, because when you look at the metagame, the representation of all the players that played in the tournament, 23.5% were Mewtwo and 22.2% were Pikachu. Now I include the Pikachu Zebra Striker, Pikachu Zapdos, Pikachu Raichu, Pikachu, who did I forget? Electrode. Yeah, all of them. I just add them all together into Pikachu because I feel like it's fair just to call them Pika decks. So even though we had less representation of Pikachu, we still had a massive majority in the top 32 represented by Pikachu. Now, between this and the new cards we had, the Haunter and the Jigglypuff, didn't really have a massive impact on this. We had the one Wiggly Arbok deck, and that was it. So there's nothing massive that has changed, and this just lets us know that the game is still very heavily RNG dependent. Not too much has changed since the last time Pikachu was on top about 3 weeks ago, with the Raichu being one of the better matchups against the Mewtwo. Not much has really changed that, so you can tell that it is just a luck of the draw RNG. Both of these decks still fantastic, and it's just a matter of who has the better day on the day with the representation, RNG, drawing hands. coin flips, all that good stuff. So that is that one. That was very interesting to see the massive dominance shift into Pikachu. Now, we did have the Zard Arcanine have 3 representations. That deck definitely doing really well for Charizard. That addition of the Arcanine still being great at 11.7. We had Starmie Articuno, 2 entrants in there, and it had a 4.23% representation. Then we had that one Wiggly Arbok. We only had one Zard deck in there, even though Zard did have a 6.84% representation. And then we had one Articuno Greninja, which we'll talk about. So that is the metagame, the top 32, and the representation. But now I want to look in and talk about some of the decks. So the first thing we'll do is we'll look at the winning deck, take a look at what the Pikachu type strategy has been. It's been the Pikachu Raichu and the Pikachu Zebra Striker, which were the top performing ones in this one. Let's jump in and take a look at this bad boy. So as you can see, running the double Pikachu, double Raichu, the double Zapdos EX, and then the Pincurchin. Now, I do like the Pincurchin. It gives you that extra, like, easier to obtain RNG type victory with the paralysis. I do think it's a nice little tech into this deck. The one thing you do notice is we are only running the one Lieutenant Surge. So I guess the one Lieutenant Surge is often enough to net the win, and they're more concerned about building the Raichu than having the Surge in hand. Sometimes I do see people run 2 Lieutenant Surge, but it's a hard trade-off because it can end up to be a little bit bricky. And I think in some situations, having the, like, say, the Pincurchin in there instead of a Surge is going to be a nice addition, because we are also only running the one Sabrina, running the double Giovanni's to get that extra pressure in on the deck as well. And that is what we are looking at. So it's a pretty staple Pika Raichu deck. Like I said, running the one Surge and the one Pincurchin, which is pretty solid. But let's jump in and let's take a look at the third place deck, which was another Pika deck, just for comparison, and take a look at what they were running. Once again, this is very, very standard, but you are seeing the Pincurchin in there again. Once again, the game is heavily coin flip based. So we are seeing a lot more of a shift towards the coin flip cards being a alternative win condition. That's the one thing you will see with the Jigglypuff, especially the Jigglypuff when we look at the Arbok Wigglytuff deck, is that one Jigglypuff just coming out when we look at the meta being Mewtwo and Pika EX, which aren't heavily evolution based. Obviously, Pika does have some evolutions. Mewtwo has the Gardevoir line, but normally your big hitters are going to be the Zapdos and the Pikachu and the Mewtwo EX. And so being able to go ahead and put some form of paralysis or sleep on those cards just basically gives you a straight win condition on a flip. It gives you a 50% chance to have almost the game completely turn in your favor. So we are definitely seeing a lot of that happen. Besides that pretty staple Pikachu Zebra Striker deck that we are looking at there. So that is that one. Still running the 7 basics, and that's something we do see a lot more now, is people reverting back to the 7 basics. We did see a phase there early on when people were running 8 basics, but it has gone back down to that 7, and obviously the deck is still getting plenty of consistency running only the 7. So next up, let's go back over here. And let's take a look at the Mewtwo deck that we had in the top. Like I said, we didn't have a massive amount of Mewtwo representation in this one, and this is pretty standard for what we are seeing. You're just running the Gardevoir lines, you're running the 2 Mewtwo EX and the 1 Baby Mewtwo. This is what we've been seeing iron out as the fan favorites Mewtwo EX deck. Not much you would change in there. The potions still come in super clutch. You could alt out the red card for something else if you wanted to. Maybe a Giovanni. That's the one big difference that we've seen in the Mewtwo deck as well since the addition of the Baby Mewtwo, is that now, because they're wanting to run the Baby Mewtwo as a wall, we're seeing less Giovannis, whereas in early days, like weeks ago, we used to see at least 1 Giovanni, sometimes 2 in most of these Mewtwo decks, to allow that Mewtwo EX to get the one-hit kill on a lot of those basic Pokemon. But now it has shifted away from that, and now they are working with that Baby Mewtwo as the pivot in the deck to help you control the board a bit more. And so now they've gone away from that Giovanni because you're not going for the forced pressure early, because you're going for more of a controlled play in this deck. So that's what we are definitely seeing more of. As we bounce back over, let's take a look at this spicy Wigglytuff deck. Now, we did see this one in the top 32, I believe, last week. This is only running the 1 Jigglypuff and the 1 Wigglytuff, but it is a super clutch Jigglypuff. I love the way with this deck you can get out, you can use the poison with the wheezing, then swap to the Jigglypuff. Then you've got a steady chip damage income of 20 per turn on the return if the enemy stays asleep. So you can actually get that poison rolling. And we did actually see some decks that were running, say, double Wheezing line, double Wigglytuff line, and only the single Arbok line. So there was a couple different variations of this in the tournament that we saw. But for me personally, I just think anything with Arbok is cool because Arbok is just a fantastic card. I love the way it plays. You got the Sabrina plays. It's just a fantastic card. 100 HP, only 2 cost on the attack, which is fantastic. You're trapping someone in. Its only downfall is the 2 retreat cost as opposed to some of the more efficient cards, which are only 1. But in general, I think this deck is absolutely fantastic. It's a really frustrating deck. Wheezing is just such an annoying card to play around where if it's stuck in there, you know you're going to deal some chip damage into it, but you essentially waste a turn dealing chip damage because you know they're going to Koga it out, and it's just going to absolutely ruin you. The fact, it still blows my mind the fact that Koga bounces everything back into your hand, including the coughing. As a Yu-Gi-Oh player, back in the days playing compulsory evacuation device where it puts the say your XEs into your hand and then all the other cards go to the graveyard. This, like when I first saw Koga in this game and the way it worked, it's just insane. And it is just crazy plays with that Wheezing. I do think Koga with Wheezing alone in some of these other decks is much more efficient than trying to run it with the Muck. The Muck just doesn't quite have the synergies yet. But the Jigglypuff in this one, in the replays, some clutch head flips. There was one game against a Pikachu EX where I think the opponent woke up 4 times in a row, and that is just something that is going to happen every once in a while. But sometimes you just get that one crucial sleep on the enemy Pikachu EX, the enemy Zapdos, the enemy Mewtwo EX, and it just puts you in such an advantageous position that you can go ahead and clutch the win. Now, the one problem with this deck is that it does not have any big hitters. Your biggest hitter is the 80 damage on the Wigglytuff, and that's pretty much it. Besides that, you can stack damage with the extra poison, so you can get a 100 damage on return with the Wheezing if you manage to Wheezing poison into Koga, then put them to sleep. They stay asleep and they have to stay in for the turn. That is your biggest damage round, and that's always been one of the big issues for Arbok decks in general, is the lack of heavy hitting pressure. But that 80 damage is definitely reasonable, especially when you consider the fact that you put them to sleep and you have a 50% chance to basically repeat that damage unless they have an evolution. And like I said, at the moment, the Jigglypuff Wigglytuff is working really well in the current meta because of the 2 top decks not being very evolution focused with the cards that they normally have in their primary active spot. So that is a really good advantage that it does have. Me personally, the thing I am looking forward to most with Arbok, because I say it every time that Arbok is like one of my favorite cards in the game, I am looking forward to Crobat. I want to see what Crobat is. I hope we get it in this next mini set, if not in the next main set, because I think Crobat is going to be along the lines of what Greninja is and also what Pidgeot is, and I feel like we could get some extra spice to throw in with the Arbok deck, because that, I'm getting sidetracked here, but I get excited thinking about this, because the Golbat is that 1 cost evolution that can, swing for a decent little bit of damage at only 1 energy cost, and then if we get that 3rd evolution into it and it has some sort of decent effect, I think it's going to be fantastic. We'll have to wait and see, but once again, mad respect to the Wigglytuff player getting a result in there. Let's bounce back. Let's see if there was anything else spicy. That's the other thing I wanted to mention. So we did see the Starmie Articuno in there. We saw 2 of those in appearance, but we also did see the 1 Greninja with Articuno. Now, I want to mention this because I had 4 different people message me throughout the week saying that this is their new favorite deck. People are loving this deck. I do really like it. I've loved anything with Greninja from the start. You guys know I cooked up my Arbok Greninja deck, which isn't meta at all, but it's fun and it's 2 cards that I absolutely love. And I think Greninja's value is just absolutely amazing. With this, it gives you plenty of chance to have an effective hand when you go first, because a lot of decks don't like going first, whereas this one, you've got 2 Misties which give you a chance to have functionality if you go first. You also have the Frogadier, which if you go first and you can make that evolution, you're swinging for 30 on your 2nd turn, which is really, really solid. So going first in this deck is not completely crippling and often will lead to a decent result in the deck, which is a fantastic thing. Now, the one tech I like playing in this deck personally is the 1 Baby Articuno, because it allows you to sacrifice 2 points more regularly, 2 single points more regularly before you have to switch into the Articuno and actually, the Articuno EX and then make them take the 2. So I like the idea of having the option to sacrifice 2 singles, because it's rare that you'd probably be sacrificing 2 Greninja, or 2 Froakies or whatever it is, 2 of the Greninja line, and then going into the Articuno EX. So I do really like the Baby Articuno. Also works well as a pivot, tanking some damage with only the 1 retreat cost, because you are running the 2x speeds in here. The card I would probably drop from this deck to do that would be the red card. I don't know, but you guys, me and red card have a really bad relationship. I feel like every time I use it, I give them the cards they need, and every time they use it, they absolutely bone me. But it is one of those cards where it's just like, take the good with the bad and see how it goes. But I do really like this deck. I like anything with Greninja. We did see some Greninja Starmies. I don't think there was any in the top 32, but you know, the waters are starting to see some representation. People are having fun with them, getting them back in there. But obviously, when we look at how dominant Pikachu was in this tournament, it's going to make something like this a little bit harder to start climbing ranks in, just because of the fact that, you know, we've got you basically, your matchup, unless the Pikachu deck bricks or unless you get good Misty Flips, you're not really going to have much of a chance in here, but you still can clutch a win from time to time. And the problem is with this deck, once again, is just that the Pikachu is running absolutely rampant. But that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to look at in this one. Once again, a massive shout out to the winners, and especially to Ursi for hosting these on a weekly basis. She does a fantastic job. Go watch them live on Twitch. The VOD is over on her YouTube as well if you want to watch the top 32 cut. That's what I always do. I'm always busy on the weekend, so I go through and I watch the VOD of the top 32 on 2x speed so I can see what's been happening and have a look at some of the games. And just massive shout out to Ursi in general. Once again, her links will be in the description, and also to Raven for casting with her in the top 32 bracket. Massive shout out to him. His links will be in the description as well. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing the next one. Cheers.